What's up, YouTube? I'm Robert, and you're watching the B1KER Bar Podcast.
A big misconception with carbon is that it can be automated, and there, in the going on, 15 years that I've at least been involved in the carbon manufacturing business, we've definitely seen steps towards automation, but really carbon is still very much a hands-on, craftsman type process. So, basically the way we do carbon, there's multiple ways to manufacture a carbon part. There's wet layups where you take basically dry carbon fiber, so just dry weaves or whatever, and then you cover them in glue or the resin. And anybody that's ever worked with fiberglass, that's more like how a surfboard or something would be made, right? You wrap it in fiberglass, put the resin on, and that process. That's sort of that's a wet layup. And then what we do is we use pre-preg. So, but basically what we do is we order our carbon fiber, and it already has a resin system impregnated into the fibers. So basically what we get are these big sheets, these big rolls of carbon fiber that have already been manufactured. So we order them to our spec. We order them with whatever resin quantity we want in them, and we order them with whatever weight fiber. And so, the lighter weight fibers cost a little bit more than the heavier weight fibers, but to a certain degree, carbon fiber is carbon fiber.
Right.
What makes good carbon versus bad carbon really comes down to how it's processed. And a great analogy or metaphor is like baking bread, for example. The basic ingredients of baking a loaf of bread are pretty much the same. You've got your salt, your yeast, your water, your sugar, your flour.
It's been that way for thousands of years, right?
Yeah. But the thing is like the difference between like an artisan loaf of bread and a loaf of Wonder Bread are very different, right?
Yeah, totally. You don't have a piece of Wonder Bread at dinner and like, man, this is great, dude. I can just eat this whole bowl or basket of it,
Yeah. And so that's that's a lot like what carbon manufacturing is like, or making something out of carbon fiber is like. It's like, for the most part, everybody's using basically the same, carbon is carbon. It is.
My understanding is that the resin though has a lot to do with it as well. And that's where some people will skimp and save money is the resin, right? Yeah.
So resin is a major factor. And then more than anything, it's also understanding what that resin was designed to achieve. So, there's I don't know the number. There's countless, to exaggerate. There are hundreds of types of different resin systems, and they're all constantly being developed, and they are serving different purposes. There's resin systems out there that go into making carbon fiber rotors for Formula One cars. So a resin system like that has an extremely high thermal gradient.
That's crazy to me to think about. Like it just like kind of hurts your brain a little bit, like plastic rotors, it's just like really hard to like wrap your head around.
Well, and I think that's important. Like, it's not plastic you're dealing with the core, you're dealing with the basal element, which is carbon fiber. Then your resin system, yes, that's where you start to deal with the polymers and, different, those mixed blends of adhesives and, glue, plastic, whatever it is.
Right.
And those things can range from something that is, again, very brittle and very intended for very high temperature operation to something that's completely pliable and almost rubberized to where you can, it has a lot more flexion and can absorb more impacts and vibration. And so you have this wide range of options. And so a lot of that's a very important factor. And then, so what we do, we get these big rolls of carbon fiber, and the closest thing I think people could maybe relate to possibly is sort of how textiles are manufactured. So, we're both wearing t-shirts.
Right.
These t-shirts are cut in patterns, right? So at some point there's big rolls of cloth. They're rolled out onto a cutting table or a cutting machine, and they're cut into these panels that are eventually sewn together and turned into a t-shirt or a hat or whatever it may be. And carbon fiber is similar in the same way. So we roll these sheets out, and in some cases we are cutting different patterns out. So, we're cutting patterns, but we're also laminating sheets together. So with carbon, you start with basically for every, basically there's an opposite and equal fiber angle for every angle you do. So it's,
right. So without getting too into it. Yeah. So basically you can lay that up and give it flexibility in certain directions or make it
exactly. So, I mean, if, for example, if these are fiber angles and all running this direction, it's going to be pretty stiff this way, but really flexible folding like this. And then to stiffen the whole thing up, to balance the structure, you would overlay some fibers running the opposite way to create that weave or that mesh. And so you're, 45 degree plus or minus 40. So these angles have a major impact on what the ultimate product is designed to do. So is it a handlebar? Is it a wheel? Frame tubing?
So that's where the layup really like makes a difference, and that's kind of like the artisan bread maker that you were talking about. Is
absolutely
how well the layup is. If you like that, make sure you check out the full episode. And hey, do me a favor, before you take off, hit the like and subscribe. A big thanks to the show sponsor, Project 321. Hit the link and show more and save up to 10% on your next wheel build.